Have you ever watched evil people succeed while good people suffer and wondered where God is hiding? What if I told you that this exact question, the one that keeps you awake at night when life feels unfair, was asked by someone 3,000 years ago, and his brutal honesty with God changed everything? Right now, somewhere in the world, a corrupt politician is getting richer while honest people lose their jobs. A bully is tormenting someone weaker while authorities look the other way. An abuser is hurting innocent victims while everyone pretends not to see. Most people either get bitter and lose faith, or they pretend everything is fine and fake positivity. But King David chose a third option that seems almost scandalous. He directly confronted God about divine silence and demanded answers. Today, you're about to learn not just advanced English vocabulary for describing injustice and moral outrage, but you're going to discover why brutal honesty with God is actually the pathway to unshakable faith and ultimate justice. David opens Psalm 10 with two of the most challenging questions ever directed toward God. O Lord, why do you stand so far away? Why do you hide when I am in trouble? These aren't polite theological inquiries, but desperate, frustrated demands for explanation. The phrase, "stand so far away," creates an image of deliberate distance, like someone who sees you drowning but chooses to stay on the opposite shore. When someone stands far away, they're not just physically distant, but emotionally disconnected and apparently unwilling to help. The word hide is even more troubling. It suggests intentional concealment, like playing hide and seek when someone desperately needs to find you. In English, when we say someone is hiding, we imply deliberate avoidance of detection or contact. David is essentially accusing God of abandoning him precisely when divine help is most needed. This teaches us that authentic faith sometimes includes brutal honesty about our disappointment with God's apparent absence. David immediately shifts focus to describe the wicked with vivid hunting imagery. The wicked arrogantly hunt down the poor. Let them be caught in the evil they plan for others. The word arrogantly describes behavior characterized by excessive pride and contempt for others. When someone acts arrogantly, they believe they're superior and treat others as beneath their consideration. The phrase hunt down uses predator language. These aren't random encounters but deliberate, systematic targeting of vulnerable people. When someone hunts down their prey, they track, pursue, and corner them with calculated precision. David's prayer, "let them be caught," calls for poetic justice. He wants the hunters to become the hunted. Trapped by their own schemes, David describes their moral corruption in detail, for they brag about their evil desires. They praise the greedy and curse the Lord. The word brag means to boast proudly about something, but here, they're boasting about things that should bring shame. When someone brags, they want others to admire and envy them. The phrase evil desires refers to malicious wants and cruel ambitions. The word greedy describes those whose primary motivation is accumulating wealth and possessions regardless of how it affects others. When someone is greedy, they're never satisfied and always want more. The phrase "curse the Lord" means to speak disrespectfully and contemptuously about God, treating the Creator as an enemy to be insulted rather than a deity to be revered. Their spiritual blindness becomes apparent. The wicked are too proud to seek God. They seem to think that God is dead. The phrase "too proud" indicates that arrogance prevents them from acknowledging their need for divine help. When someone is too proud to do something, their ego stops them from taking necessary action. The phrase "seek God" implies actively looking for divine guidance and relationship, not just knowing about God intellectually, but pursuing personal connection. The shocking statement, "they seem to think that God is dead," reveals their functional atheism. Even if they don't explicitly deny God's existence, they live as if God has no power, authority, or relevance in their daily decisions. David observes their apparent success with frustration, yet they succeed in everything they do. They do not see your punishment awaiting them. They sneer at all their enemies. The word yet creates a troubling contrast. Despite their wickedness, they're thriving. When someone succeeds in everything, they experience consistent victory and prosperity in all their endeavors. The phrase "do not see your punishment awaiting them" suggests divine consequences are coming but remain invisible to them. The word sneer describes a contemptuous facial expression that shows arrogant disdain. When someone sneers at you, they twist their face to show they consider you inferior and ridiculous. Their false confidence becomes evident. They think, "Nothing bad will ever happen to us. We will be free of trouble forever." This quote reveals their delusional thinking. They believe their current success guarantees permanent immunity from consequences. The phrase "nothing bad will ever happen" shows absolute confidence in their invulnerability. When someone believes they'll be free of trouble forever, they think they've escaped a normal human experience of facing difficulties and setbacks. This mindset creates dangerous overconfidence that prevents them from considering the long-term consequences of their actions. David describes their verbal violence. Their mouths are full of cursing, lies, and threats. Trouble and evil are on the tips of their tongues. The phrase "mouths are full of" suggests speech that's completely saturated with harmful words. The word cursing refers to profane language designed to demean and hurt others. Lies are deliberate falsehoods told to deceive and manipulate. Threats are promises to harm someone if they don't comply with demands. The poetic phrase "on the tips of their tongues" means these harmful words are always ready to be spoken. They don't have to think about being cruel, because cruelty is their natural default. Their predatory behavior intensifies. They lurk in ambush in the villages, waiting to murder innocent people. They are always searching for helpless victims. The word "lurk" describes stealthy, secretive movement with evil intent. When someone lurks, they hide in shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. An ambush is a surprise attack from a hidden position. Military strategy applied to innocent civilians. The phrase "waiting to murder" reveals premeditated violence. This isn't sudden anger, but calculated killing. The description "always searching for helpless victims" shows systematic predation. When someone is always searching, it's their continuous occupation and primary focus. David uses powerful animal metaphors, like lions crouched in hiding. They wait to pounce on the helpless. Like hunters, they capture the helpless and drag them away in nets. The comparison to lions crouched in hiding presents these people as apex predators using stealth and overwhelming power. When a lion crouches, it's preparing to spring with explosive force. The word "pounce" describes sudden, violent attack, the moment when a predator stops hiding and strikes with full power. The hunting metaphor continues with "capture and drag them away in nets." When hunters use nets, they trap multiple victims simultaneously, preventing escape. The phrase "drag them away" suggests victims are taken to isolated places where no one can help them. The victim's helplessness is emphasized. Their helpless victims are crushed. They fall beneath the strength of the wicked. The word "crushed" means completely overwhelmed and broken, not just defeated but destroyed. When something is crushed, it's pressed down until it's flattened and destroyed. The phrase "fall beneath the strength" uses the image of being overwhelmed by superior force. When someone falls beneath overwhelming power, they're completely overpowered and unable to resist. David reveals the wicked's false theology. The wicked think, "God isn't watching us. He has closed his eyes and won't even see what we do." This quote exposes their belief that God is either absent, indifferent, or powerless. The phrase "isn't watching" suggests God is distracted or inattentive. The image of God closing his eyes presents divine blindness as deliberate choice rather than limitation. When someone closes their eyes to wrongdoing, they choose not to see what's happening, either from indifference or inability to respond. David's patience finally breaks. Arise, O Lord, punish the wicked, O God. Do not ignore the helpless. The command arise calls God to action, like telling someone to get up from rest and do something. The demand to punish the wicked calls for justice and consequences. When someone is punished, they experience negative consequences for their wrongdoing. The plea, do not ignore the helpless, acknowledges that ignoring injustice is itself a form of injustice. When someone ignores a problem, they pretend it doesn't exist or isn't their responsibility. David questions divine justice. Why do the wicked get away with despising God? They think God will never call us to account. The phrase "get away with" means to avoid consequences for wrongdoing. When someone gets away with something bad, they escape punishment and continue their harmful behavior. The word despising means regarding with contempt and hatred. The phrase "call us to account" uses business language like being audited or required to explain your actions. When someone is called to account, they must answer for their choices and face consequences. But David declares his confidence in divine awareness. But you see the trouble and grief they cause. You take note of it and punish them. The helpless put their trust in you. You defend the orphans. The word "but" creates a sharp contrast between the wicked's false beliefs and reality. The phrase "take note" means to pay careful attention and record information. When someone takes note of something, they're not just passively observing but actively recording for future action. The word "orphans" represents the most vulnerable members of society, children without parents to protect them. David calls for decisive action. Break the arms of these wicked, evil people. Go after them until the last one is destroyed. The phrase "break the arms" uses the metaphor of removing someone's ability to harm others. When someone's arms are broken, they lose their power to fight or work. The command "go after them" calls for active pursuit and confrontation. The phrase "until the last one is destroyed" calls for complete elimination of this threat to society. David proclaims God's eternal reign. The Lord is king forever and ever. The godless nations will vanish from the land. The declaration "king forever and ever" emphasizes permanent, unchanging authority. When someone reigns forever and ever, their power never diminishes or transfers to someone else. The word "godless" describes people or societies that reject divine authority and moral standards. The promise that they will vanish suggests complete disappearance, not just defeat but total elimination from existence. David concludes with confidence in divine justice. Lord, you know the hopes of the helpless. Surely you will hear their cries and comfort them. You will bring justice to the orphans and the oppressed, so mere people can no longer terrify them. The phrase "you know the hopes" indicates divine awareness of the dreams and desires of vulnerable people. The word "comfort" means to provide consolation and relief in times of distress. The promise to bring justice assures that God will ensure fair treatment and appropriate consequences. The final phrase, "so mere people can no longer terrify them," envisions a time when human bullies and oppressors lose their power to intimidate innocent victims. This is the secret I mentioned at the beginning. Brutal honesty with God about injustice doesn't destroy faith but actually strengthens it. When we stop pretending everything is fine and directly confront God with our hardest questions about evil and suffering, we discover that God can handle our doubts and anger. David's raw honesty led him not to atheism but to deeper confidence in ultimate divine justice. Sometimes the pathway to unshakable faith runs directly through the valley of honest doubt and moral outrage.